I did not cheat on my wife because I fell in love with someone else. I did not cheat because my marriage was broken, or because she did something wrong, or because I was unhappy. I cheated because it was late. She was asleep. And someone else was awake. That is the part one am most ashamed of. Not the act. The reason. Because what kind of person destroys the best thing in his life for a reason that small? I have been asking myself that question every single day since the morning my wife handed me my phone across our bedroom and said 4 words that split my life in two. I want to tell you what those 4 words were. But first I need you to understand what kind of man I thought I was before she said them. I need you to understand how ordinary the beginning was. Because I think that is the part nobody talks about. We always hear the dramatic versions. The grand passion, the unavoidable collision, the feeling that you simply could not help yourself. We tell those stories because they sound like something. They sound like an explanation. My story does not sound like anything. My wife and I had been married for 7 months. We were happy. Our apartment was full of the small evidence of a life being built, half-assembled furniture, photos we kept meaning to frame, inside jokes that had not existed a year before. We were in that early stage of marriage where everything still feels deliberate and chosen and yours. I was not looking for anything. I was not unhappy. I was not even restless in any way I recognized as restless. I just could not sleep. That was it. That was the whole door. She had started as an intern at my office while I was away on my honeymoon. By the time I came back and met her, we had already discovered something in common. A shared school, a connection to my family that made the whole thing feel safe and familiar. She would stop by my office. We would talk. It felt like friendship. It felt like exactly the kind of easy, innocent thing it absolutely was. Not. The night started small. A comment I left on something she posted online. A reply I did not expect until morning that came through in minutes. A conversation that went later than it should have. And then later still. And I let it. Every single night. I let it. That is what I have to live with. Not that it happened to me. That I let it happen. Over and over again. One small choice at a time. Over the following weeks, she became a regular presence. She would stop by my office during the day. We talked about memories, about life, about the small pressures of adulthood. It did not feel dangerous. I was happy in my marriage, settled in my life, so what was there to question? The shift happened slowly. Like a temperature change so gradual you do not reach for a jacket until you are already cold. She came alive after 9 in the evening, in the hours when my wife was asleep and I was restless, staring at a ceiling that never had anything useful to offer. And there she was, on the other side of a glowing screen, available and attentive and asking all the right questions at all the wrong hours. The messages got longer. The jokes got more personal. And then one night, the conversation shifted in a way I could no longer explain away. "How's your boyfriend?" I asked. "I don't have a boyfriend," she said. "Then, let me be your boyfriend." We laughed. I told myself it was a joke. I kept talking. I kept laughing. I kept coming back the next night and the night after that. And slowly, so slowly I barely noticed it happening, the joke stopped being a joke. It was a Tuesday when everything changed in a way I could no longer explain away. I know it was a Tuesday because the cleaner always came on Tuesdays, and I remember hearing the sound of her cart in the corridor, the small squeak of one wheel. And then silence as she moved to another floor. And then it was just the two of us in my office. I do not know which one of us moved first. I am not sure it matters. What I remember is the moment just before, the way the room went very quiet, the way she looked at me with this small, almost questioning expression, like she was giving me a chance to step back. I did not step back. Afterward I stood very still. I waited for something to arrive in my chest. Some signal, some alarm, the kind of feeling that should come with a moment like that. It did not come. There was just the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic outside and my own breathing, steadier than it had any right to be. That steadiness scared me more than anything else. Because it meant some part of me had already decided. Long before that Tuesday. Long before I ever admitted it to myself. I straightened my collar. I sat back down at my desk. I opened a document I was not going to read. And I told myself, this was nothing. This was one moment. This does not count. It counted. When you compare her to my wife, and I have thought about this more times than I can count since, she was not more beautiful. She was not more kind. She was not more interesting or more impressive in any way that mattered. What she had was availability. She had nighttime. She had the hours when my wife was asleep and I was restless and making choices I should not have been making. That is the honest answer. That is the part that is hardest to say out loud. Because what it means is that I made a choice. Not once, every single night, I made it again. I told myself it was harmless. I told myself I was in control. I told myself I knew where the line was. None of that was true, and some part of me knew it was not true, and I kept going anyway. That is not something that happened to me. That is something I did. And there is a difference between those two things that I had to sit with for a very long time before I could admit it. I deleted the messages. Every night, before I put the phone down, I made sure there was nothing to find. I had convinced myself that this made it less real somehow, that if the evidence was gone, the thing itself was smaller. That is the kind of thinking you do when you already know what you are doing is wrong but you have decided not to stop yet. My wife was not always asleep. I was too caught up in my own world to notice. The light from my phone was cutting through the dark of our bedroom, and she had been waking up in the night, not out of suspicion at first, but simply because the light was there. And then she saw my face. The way I was smiling at the screen in the quiet hours when I thought no one was watching. And she started to wonder. Our marriage was not even 6 months old. The night it all ended, I fell asleep mid-message. I had been careful every single night before that. But that night I was more tired than I realized, and somewhere in the middle of typing, the phone dropped against my chest and my eyes closed and I did not wake up until morning. By then, she had already found it. She had read everything. Not just the unfinished message. Everything. Every exchange still sitting in that conversation. She had sat in the dark and read it all while I slept beside her. And by the time I opened my eyes, she was already dressed, already standing near the window, holding my phone in both hands the way you hold something you are not sure what to do with yet. She crossed the room and held it out to me. I sat up. I took it. And in the 2 seconds between taking the phone and looking at the screen, I still did not know. Some part of me was still half asleep, still innocent, still a man whose wife was just handing him his phone in the morning. Then I saw the screen. My mouth went dry so fast it was almost physical, like something had reached in and taken the moisture right out. I could feel my pulse in places I do not normally feel it. My ears. My fingertips. The back of my jaw. She was watching me with an expression I had never seen on her face before and have never been able to fully describe since. Not fury. Not tears. Something older than both of those things. Something that looked like the exact moment a person decides to stop being surprised.
You couldn't finish typing your last statement. Here you are. Continue.
I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. I tried again. A sound arrived, but not a word. Just air. The person I had been before that morning, the one who called himself the strong one, the steady one, the person who held things together, that person was completely gone. I had no posture left. No voice. No ground to stand on. I was just a man in a bedroom with a phone in his hand and nothing to offer. She asked her questions quietly. One after another. How many times? What this woman had that she did not have. How much of their money I had spent. And then the one that landed hardest of all, why? I had no answer for why. I still do not have one that is worth anything. I'm sorry, I said. It won't happen again. That was everything I had. That was the whole answer. And I watched her face as I said it, and I saw what those words looked like landing on someone who deserved so much more than them. I was desperate for forgiveness. But more than that, I was desperate to save what we had built, the apartment, the warmth, the furniture we had put together, laughing, the life that was only 7 months old and was already standing at the edge of something it might not come back from. That same day, while she was in another room and the apartment was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator running, I picked up my phone and typed one last message. I can't do this anymore. Her reply came fast. Why? What happened? I put the phone down. I did not reply. I turned it face down on the table and I left it there. And that was the last conversation we ever had. The 3 months that followed had a texture I still cannot fully describe. Thick. Slow. Like moving through something that had no name. I took every leave day I had left and I stayed home. I cooked. I cleaned. I did every small domestic thing I could think of because small things were the only currency I had left and I spent every one of them. She let me. She did not stop me. She also did not thank me, and I understood why, and I did not expect her to. There was one night, maybe 3 weeks in, when she fell asleep on the couch with the television still on. I sat on the floor beside her and watched some program I was not following and I thought, if she wakes up right now and tells me to leave, I will have no argument. I will have nothing to say. And that feeling, of having no argument, of being completely without defense for the first time in my adult life, sat in my stomach like something I had swallowed wrong. I stopped getting fully under the covers at night. I am not sure when that started. I just know that at some point it felt wrong to act like I still belonged to that space completely. She never asked me why. I never explained. We just existed inside this careful, exhausting politeness that was somehow worse than anger would have been. I wanted her to shout. I wanted her to throw something. Instead she passed me the salt at dinner and said thank you when I held the door and went to bed at 9 o'clock like always, except now she closed the bedroom door behind her. That soft click, every night. That was the whole sound of what I had done. 3 months after the morning with the phone, she looked at me. Really looked at me, the first time she had made full eye contact since that day. And she said, I forgive you. No conditions attached. It is a phase and I hope we do not meet it again. I nodded. I promised. I meant every word. And things changed anyway. She locks the bathroom door now. She used to leave it open without thinking. She covers herself when she is getting dressed, where before she never thought twice. There was a closeness between us that had no name, the kind that builds quietly over months and lives in small moments, in the way two people move around each other without thinking. That closeness has pulled back. Not disappeared. Just moved further away than I can reach right now. Our marriage now has 2 periods. Before and after. 7 months of before. Everything else is after. And after has no end date. I find myself sometimes wanting to say, darling, you have changed. And then I remember that I am the reason for the change. So I stay quiet. I say something else. I water the leaf I promised to water and I try not to think too hard about how different the plant looks now. I call it the incident when I have to refer to it. Even to myself. The real word feels too heavy. Too permanent. Too much like the person I became in those months is actually who I am underneath everything. I do not believe that. But I understand now why she might need more time before she believes it too. Sometimes I catch myself waiting for the other shoe to drop. Waiting for the day she changes her mind about the forgiveness. Waiting for the moment she decides the cost is too high. I stop myself when I get there. I take a breath. And I choose to believe her because she has given me every reason to, and I have already taken enough from this marriage without taking that too. We have been told to go to counseling. I have suggested it more than once. She said, "When I am ready, I will tell you." Before all of this, she would have grabbed my hand and said, "Yes, let's go, let's fix this together." That is the change I am talking about. Not the shouting. The quiet pulling back. The slow, measured distance of someone who is still deciding how much of herself to trust me with. That is what forgiveness looks like from the inside. It is real. It is full. And it costs something every single day. If you are in a good marriage right now and someone is paying you attention that feels harmless, late at night, after everyone is asleep, in a conversation no one else can see, I want you to read this again. Not because I think you are weak. But because I thought I was strong too. I thought I had it handled. I thought I knew exactly where the line was. I did not even notice when I crossed it. And if you are on the other side of this, if you are the one who was betrayed and you are sitting with the forgiveness you gave and wondering why giving it did not feel like freedom, I want you to know that what you are feeling is real. Forgiveness is not a switch. It is a direction. It is something you choose again and again, on the days when it is easy and especially on the days when it is not. I am still walking toward the person I want to be in this marriage. I do not know how long that walk is. I just know I cannot stop. If this was you, if you had been the one standing in that room holding that phone, what would you have done? Would you have stayed? Would you have walked away? Would you have handled it completely differently? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one.